Okay, so it looks like we have most of the people who are going to be showing up today. Thank you for joining us. This is the Libraries Connecting Texas June 2023 monthly webinar. Our agenda is we're going to be discussing the summary of LCT funding with Jennifer. I'll be discussing the transition from funding year 2022 to funding year 2023. And then following that, Kennedy is going to be discussing next steps and upcoming deadlines. Finally, we'll be addressing in full some of these larger questions. And Roy, I see your question in the chat there. I'll also be happy to discuss with you after the meeting as well, if you have any further questions after the call. But yeah, let's hand it off to Jennifer.
Thank you, Kyle, and welcome everyone. So I'm going to give you guys the summaries of our stats for the LCT libraries. So for funding year 2023, 127 libraries filed their applications. The pre-discounted amount for LCT libraries in 23 was $1.9 million, which is pretty awesome. And currently we have 2 applications that are wave ready, which most likely will come out today. 99 FRNs have been funded. 5 applications are still in PIA currently. So the pre-discount funding commitment so far is $903,000, which is a pretty big number for you guys. Currently, we still have the average bandwidth about 781 megabytes per second, which is awesome from when we all started. Most of them were less than 100 megs, so congratulations to you libraries. The cost per megabytes is now roughly about $225. Last year in 2022, the cost per megabyte was $5.26, so we're making good progress of bringing the price down on bandwidth. And now I will turn it back over to Kyle.
Thank you, Jennifer. So now let's discuss, as the funding year 2022 is ending, let's discuss what it's going to look like as we move into funding year 2023. Firstly, keep in mind that the funding year 2022 ends on June 30th, 2023. So things to prepare for. My apologies, I think I included a typo there, but that is June 30th, the day before July 1st, because July 1st will be the first day of the funding year 2023. So as we make that switch, things that you should prepare for include, oh, sorry, thanks, Candy. So if you are switching service providers, or if you're changing your service up, make sure that you've scheduled your old services to be turned off and schedule a time for the new services to be turned on. Now, this is often easiest to do on July 1st, but if it has to happen later than that, just be aware of that date and be aware of when that transitions over, and we can discuss what those steps would entail if you reach out to us. The invoice deadline for funding your 2022 services, so from July 2022 through June 2023, those services, that invoice deadline is coming up in a few months here, so be aware of that. If you chose SPI invoicing, the service provider invoicing mode, follow up with your service provider and check your billing to make sure that the E-rate discount is being applied properly on that bill. And if you chose bear invoicing, the billed entity applicant reimbursement, also known as the Form 472, have you submitted your bear request for reimbursement yet? If not, then we'll be sending you some tools in order to be able to document what you are going to include on that bear, and some information on how to file that bear. That process is going to be changing here shortly, moving from what has historically been the Bear portal into the E-Rate Center, E-Rate Productivity Center, kind of adjacent to it, same place where you would find the E-Rate Productivity Center. And for those of you who did ECF, the ECF portal in that one portal system. So another thing to consider is if you will be submitting a Bear, have you submitted a Form 498 and is it current? The Form 498 is going to include the disbursement account information for the library. So if for some reason there was a change in the disbursement account that the library uses, you would need to update the Form 498, or if you've never filed a Bear before, then you'll need to submit a Form 498 to establish that and validate that disbursement account information with USAC. And there we go. That at the bottom there, we have a link to the 2022 Bear workbook template. We'll be able to share that with you as well by email. And we also discussed in more length invoicing on last month's May's monthly webinar. So we should have some more information there if you have not already watched that webinar from May. All right, so moving on to funding year 2023. Keep in mind, July 1st, 2023, that is the first day of the funding year 2023. So things to prepare for and action items to take care of include certifying the Form 486 after you have received your funding commitment decision letter. Now, the vast majority of libraries have already received a funding commitment decision letter. The deadline to file that is going to be 120 days after July 1st, 2023, or if you receive the funding commitment decision letter after July 1st, then it will be 120 days after you receive that funding commitment decision letter. And again, if you're upgrading bandwidth or starting new services or switching service providers, make sure that you have that turn-up date scheduled for those services or upgrades or whatever the changes may be. And then once you receive your funding commitment decision letter, determine what your invoice mode for funding year 2023 is going to be. We just reviewed SPY invoicing and Bear invoicing on the previous slide. So keep in mind what you would want to do with that and communicate that to your service provider. Especially if you're establishing the service provider invoice mode, you'll likely need to submit an internal form that the service provider uses to document that. So reach out to your service provider and let them know how you're going to invoice for funding year 2023 for those services. And then moving on. All right, so all libraries who paid in full for services will need to invoice via Bear for funding year 2023. And again, just funding year 2022, my apologies. And again, that's July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. Once you receive that June 2023 bill and pay for it, you can submit a Bear for that entire service period. And if you're not certain what discount mechanism you have set up, either the SPY or the Bear, reach out to us and we can help you figure that out and figure out next steps for you and your library. In either case, do collect all of your invoices from that time period and have them ready either to review for the SPY discount or to submit on a Bear. We'll now be passing this over to Kendi, who's going to be discussing next steps.
Good afternoon. I know some of this seems like it is a bit redundant, but just to reiterate, we don't want you guys to miss these deadlines. The Category 1 funding year 2022 invoicing deadline is October 28th. If you're not going to be able to get it done by then, get with your account manager or send the LCT email a message and let us know so we can help you go through that process of requesting an extension. The deadline for Category 2 is January 28th of next year. So again, if for some reason you filed for Category 2 and you're going to need to invoice for that, or you need an extension, if you have questions, you know, we do want you guys taken care of, and we don't want you missing these deadlines. The funding year 2023 486 deadline can be a little bit confusing if you receive your FCDL after July 1st. So there are actually kind of two deadlines there. If you've already received your FCDL or you receive it before July 1st, the deadline for that 486 is October 29th. Should you, for some reason, receive your FCDL after July 1st, then you have 120 days after receipt of that FCDL to file your Form 486. We're glad to help you. We try to keep you on track with it, but just make sure that once you get your FCDL, we start getting this process taken care of. So once you've received your FCDL, you filed your 486, you've done all your bears and invoicing for fund year 2022, you can kind of start to think about the upcoming fund year 2024, which seems like a ways off, but it's really not. This fall will be the time that we'll start getting ready to file your Form 470. So if your internet contract expires on 6/30/2024, or your library is interested in any new services or equipment, you will need to go out to bid on a Form 470 this fall for funding year 2024. So if you have any questions, please reach out to your account manager so we can discuss that and make sure that we're prepared to help you through that process. And then just a few more reminders, if you were funded in ECF Window 1 and or Window 2, the deadline to order those devices is June 30th. And the deadline to invoice USAC for any invoices associated with Window 1 or Window 2 ECF funding is August 29th. And then finally, in order to keep up with all of our latest news, the deadlines, the reminders, we do urge you guys to subscribe to the YouTube channel and make sure that you are not only receiving, but reading the weekly newsletters that we send out to your email each week. So at this time, does anybody have any questions? If not, we thank you so much for your time. The next webinar is on July 20th at 2 p.m. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. The hotline, the LCT hotline number is here, as well as the LCT email address. And Sherry, I can pull back. So the ECF, if it was Window 1 or 2, then your deadline to invoice is August 29th. If it was a Window 3 ECF funding, then your deadline will be different. Yes, ma'am, that is for Bear. And if your service provider is, if you're using SPI, then they need to invoice USAC by that deadline. All right, is there anything else?
Also thank you, Patty, for answering Roy's question from earlier regarding the Form 486 SEPA compliance. If there's nothing else, then we will wrap this up and let you get back to your days. Thank you so much, everyone.